Good evening all, it's the Old Geek and it's time for another review. The scenario Forget Me Not by Brian M. Sammons from the Stygian Fox collection entitled The Things We Leave Behind. Very apt t-shirt. Now I know my Cthulhu reviews don't get many hits yet, but I want to get this one out there because this adventure is fresh in my mind and has already had a lasting impact on my group. After nearly 2 years of upheaval and muddling through playing games online, my Friday night group met in person recently for the first time in a while. We will be resuming our Horror on the Orient Express campaign in the new year, but that campaign has been on hiatus since the start of the pandemic. So I needed a good one-shot scenario, something to get things going again with a bang, but short enough to be able to focus on refamiliarising myself with our main game over Christmas. I did a bit of research and chose Forget Me Not, a modern day scenario for Call of Cthulhu that was published in 2016 by Stygian Fox. This review will unfortunately have a lot of spoilers, as due to the nature of the scenario, if I talk about anything inside it, then it is a spoiler, much more so than with almost any other adventure. I will also say that the cover of the book has a very clear content warning. This is a collection of very mature themed adventures aimed at adult gamers. It makes no apologies for that, and neither should it. Call of Cthulhu is a horror game, and horror should be disturbing in order for it to work. Otherwise it risks becoming little more than Scooby-Doo with dice. The adventure begins with the PC's unconscious in a van which has come off the road, and features some neat initial mechanics to determine who wakes up first and how battered and bruised they are. When they awaken, they have memory issues. They do not know who they are, where they are, or why and how they got there. And from playing the scenario and watching a few online playthroughs beforehand, this leads to a neat hour or so of role playing as they check their phones and their wallets for clues, talk to each other, tend to wounds, and get themselves out of the van. They learn that they are a TV crew making a low budget ghost hunting show. We used a group of pre-generated characters for this scenario, and it is highly recommended that anyone who plays it does so. I gave my players blank character sheets, which they then filled in as they learned their personal details and characteristics as the game went on. This became doubly interesting when they tried to use various skills, as none of them knew their chance of success until they actually tried to do something. Certainly they could guess. The character who was a sound engineer would be likely to have good technical skills, and the show presenter would have decent interpersonal skills. And there was a crucial role during the adventure which really turned it in their favour, when a player rolled 0-1 and that character had 1% on that particular skill. After that intro, the group would then typically head to a nearby farmhouse, arrange for a tow truck to get their van back to a workshop to be fixed and cleaned up, and then find somewhere to spend the night. Luckily, each of them already has a key for a room at a nearby motel. Many Call of Cthulhu scenarios are quite linear in terms of story progression. One impressive aspect of this scenario is that once the party have been through that opening section, it then all opens up and the players have a lot of freedom from that point onwards. Gradually, they will learn that they have been through an horrific ordeal, and it becomes a race against time to undo the effects of that, as each character has had something otherworldly implanted within them. The array of clues as to the nature of this ordeal and the resulting infestation is extensive. The scenario gives lots of newspaper cuttings, dream sequences and suggested medical complications that the keeper can introduce however and whenever they choose, and these are beautifully done. Eventually, they will almost certainly try to retrace their steps, discover the nature of the villain and the existence of a ritual that will expel the brood from within their bodies. I don't think I've ever encountered a Call of Cthulhu scenario that wrecks the sanity of the investigators quite as savagely as Forget Me Not does, and it's almost impossible to negate this, as each piece of information pertaining to the situation reminds the investigators of their ordeal, and each carries a sanity loss, much of it is substantial too. But it should be, because they are realizing that they have been forcibly impregnated by an ancient power, and that the offspring are moving around inside each of them, multiplying, growing, visibly whenever they view themselves in a mirror or go to the toilet. Yes, they will be passing the brood out in their poo. My group spent a good hour working out the safest way to dissect their turds and trap the broodlings inside, and later on we're trying to flush them out using laxatives, all to no avail, as the infestation cannot be cleansed by simple toilet trips, and neither can they be vomited out. Yes, my players tried that too. Oh, and they also tried to smoke them out using weed which they blagged from 2 of the NPCs in the game. They were quite inventive. But of course, weed only heightened the psychological effects that they were suffering. Now, if all that physical torment is not enough for the poor investigators, there's an optional romance subplot too, tying one of the characters to the producer of the show, who is missing. This is just another excuse to deprive the unlucky individual of yet more sanity, as they get flashbacks showing hazy memories of what happened to their beloved, in graphic and gruesome detail. The pace of this scenario is very much in the hands of the players and the keeper. Such is the amount of freedom offered. It is low on combat, but high on tension. The keeper needs to be extremely flexible, as the group will almost certainly veer away from the prepared material on many occasions. They do not need to visit all the people and locations in order to get everything they need, and they don't even need to gather that information in any specific order either. Such is the openness of the scenario. I haven't spoken about presentation yet. Forget-Me-Not is just one of 6 scenarios in this meaty book, all by different authors, but I've not yet read the others in the book. The scenario is quite an easy read for the keeper, by Call of Cthulhu standards. There is a download available which contains maps and handouts, and this has a number of errors, sadly. Some of the names don't match up, but that's minor. The maps are appealing, and there are plenty of lovely handouts which bring any investigation to life. It does suffer a little in terms of structure, in the same way that every Cthulhu scenario seems to. Nobody who puts these scenarios together ever seems to think about the ease of use for the DM. DM copies of the handouts are, as always, scattered throughout the text, as are the maps. Put them all together, for God's sake. Do the same for the history snippets as well. Yes, they're well written, but they are bloody distracting when preparing and running it all. It feels bad to criticise Forget-Me-Not for doing this when every Cthulhu book I have is written in this way, but editors, please take note. It's a pain in the arse. Right, having got that off my chest, Forget-Me-Not is proper horror, both physically and mentally disturbing. It blends psychological and body horror elements in perfect balance, and really pushes the sense of helplessness in the face of inevitable death at the hands of something unknown. It is brutal, sick, and sadistic in equal amounts, almost as bad as my wife playing a Justin Bieber Christmas song in November, as she was doing about 30 minutes ago. Forget-Me-Not is everything a Call of Cthulhu scenario should be. Just don't play it with your kids. So, a rating. Forget-Me-Not does exactly what it says on the tin. This is my first 10 out of 10. It's a work of genius. Fantastic. Brilliant. Well done, Stygian Fox. Well done, Brian M. Sammons. There we go. That's concluded this review for another night. If you like my videos, click like, subscribe, make a comment, and until the next one, this is the Old Geek saying good night.